and to be a part of the mainstream of social life without any stigma. A reading of Justice Wadhwa's opinion would not only reflect the humanity and justice, which were the cornerstone of his legal outlook, but they also reflect his poetic bent of mind. In M.I. Builders versus Radhesham Sahu, which was really a celebrated judgment at that time in 1999, Justice Wadhwa directed the demolition of illegally constructed shopping complexes in Lucknow at the site of a historical park. Justice Wadhwa directed the state to restore the park for its environmental impact and historical significance. He boldly declared that the spending of a few crores of rupees in building the complexes is no ground to violate the fundamental rights guaranteed under Article 21 of the Constitution. Most memorably, in state of Tamil Nadu versus Nalini, Justice Wadhwa upheld the conviction and sentencing of the assassins of former Prime Minister late Sri Rajiv Gandhi. Justice Wadhwa underscored the sacrifices made by the leaders of our nation in their pursuit of peace and stability, reminding us that the pursuit of justice is not just about punishment, but about upholding the values that define our collective identity. Justice Wadhwa's legacy, therefore, is not only one of legal rigor, but also of a profound understanding of the moral dimensions of justice, leaving an indelible mark on the legal landscape of India. When he wrote his judgment in Thyssen, it was a path-breaking approach to foreign arbitral awards. But these judgments were in no way delivered without the humility and grace with which we fondly remember Justice Wadhwa. In one case, two senior advocates were in a ferocious argument with each other. As the temperature of the court rose with the voices of the senior counsel, Justice Wadhwa intervened with his calm but commanding voice. He politely asked the seniors why they were raising their voices when everyone knows that they will share their cup of coffee in the coffee house after court. And he said, why don't you allow that sense of camaraderie to permeate the arguments? The decibels immediately shrunk as the courtroom burst into laughter. Another instance of Justice Wadhwa's genuine interest in the betterment of everyone around him is his initiative in establishing INSOL India. As a judge of the Supreme Court, Justice Wadhwa had visited London for a judicial conference at INSOL International. He keenly observed the working of the organization and returned with a vision to open an India chapter of INSOL to promote insolvency law in India. The success of INSOL India is a testament to his visionary leadership born out of his hard work. After he demitted the office of a Supreme Court judge, Justice Wadhwa went on to preside over the National Consumer Disputes Vessel Commission and later the Telecom Dispute Settlement Appellate Tribunal. His tenure was marked by his zeal to increase efficiency and uphold the rule of law. Justice Wadhwa was made the chairperson of the Central Vigilance Committee in 2006 by the Supreme Court to look into the issues affecting the functioning of the public distribution systems and to suggest remedial measures. He visited and studied the system in over 20 states and gave his final report. In his report, Justice Wadhwa wrote that the public distribution system of the country has not yielded its intended benefits due to corruption in the implementing machinery. He advocated for the use of modern technology to enhance transparency and efficiency in the public distribution system. Later on in life, Justice Wadhwa was instrumental in setting up a chair at the National Law University of Delhi in the memory of Sri Kundarlal Arora, a very distinguished criminal lawyer of his time, and who was related to Justice Wadhwa, his father-in-law. Justice Wadhwa's leadership extended to the realm of capital markets, where he chaired the Committee on Initial Public Offerings and laid down principles for addressing unjust enrichment and improving the allocation of IPOs. These principles continue to influence regulators even today, from humanizing the interface between law and crime, imparting his knowledge to creating a strong consumer movement, to anticipating cutting-edge developments in financial regulation, insolvency, and capital markets. This was, to use the title of John Kenneth Galbraith's memoir, truly a life in our times. Bereavements are difficult, but a life well lived deserves to be celebrated in equal measure. I'm therefore reminded of the timeless poem by Karl Hahn when he says, Do not stand by my grave and weep. I am not there, I do not sleep. I am the thousand winds that blow. I am the diamond glints in snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I am the gentle autumn rain. As you awake with morning's hush, I am of the swift, upflinging rush of quiet birds in circling flight. I am the day transcending night. Do not stand by my grave and cry, I am not there, I did not die. Justice D.P. Wadhwa shall continue to live in our collective memories. He is survived by his wife, Mrs. Krishna Wadhwa, and three children, Dr. Geeta Wadhwa, Mr. Darpan Wadhwa, who is a member of our fraternity, the bar, and Mr. Ashwin Wadhwa. His son-in-law and daughters-in-law, Dr. Rajiv Suneja, Ms. Nidhi Jalan, and Ms. Shreya Dhawan, and three grandchildren, Sahil, Mahira, and Anmay. As I said at the outset, Justice Pratik Jalan is part of the audience today. We extend our deepest condolences to his family, friends, and colleagues. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Mr. Attorney General.
Honorable Chief Justice of India, Honorable Judges of the Supreme Court, my brother Solicitor General of India, Additional Solicitor Generals, President and Office Bearer of the Supreme Court Bar Association, Distinguished Senior Counsel, President and Office Bearer of the Supreme Court Advocates and Record Association, members of the Bar and family members of Justice D.P. Wadhwa, ladies and gentlemen. We have gathered here today to honor the remarkable life and legacy of Justice D.P. Wadhwa. On solemn occasions of remembering the lives and contributions of honorable judges of this court, we not only chronicle special and important milestones in their lives in terms of chronology of events, all of which may have their distinct and notable features, but we also endeavor to present a portrait which captures with relevance some of the distinguished contributions made by them. The portrait of Justice D.P. Wadhwa carries with it notable contributions made by him, both on the bench over 14 years as a judge of the High Court of Delhi and less than 2 years as Chief Justice of the Patna High Court, and during a period of 3 years as a judge of the Hon'ble Court, and thereafter as the President of the National Consumer Judicial Commission and as the Chairperson of the Telecom Dispute Settlement and Appellate Tribunal. It's indeed interesting to note that, like many great names in the field of law, justice, and public services, hail from Lahore. Justice Wadhwa, hailing from Lahore and born in the family of a lawyer, founded the legal career in Punjab, and his shifting with practice to Delhi marked the beginning of a remarkable professional career. His professional history shows that his practice in the District Court and the High Court of Delhi earned him high regard and reputation for being a counsel with admirable practice. His journey in 1971 from being counsel for the Central Board of Direct Taxes and in 1980 on becoming Central Government Standing Counsel in the High Court of Delhi is a roadmap of deep professional commitment, excellence, and integrity. During the years of 1980 to 1983, I had the opportunity of being on the other side in a number of wide-ranging cases. I must say it is my duty to record that his amiable encouragement and warm wishes of my professional career were so encouraging and indeed indelible. I think that was Justice Wadhwa's general disposition to encourage younger entrants to the bar. I may also record that his inquiring mind, accompanied by a soft-spoken personality, went beyond matters of law, and I can recollect many occasions when we exchanged information and thoughts on Indian culture, poetry, and philosophy. All this is very invigorating, given the professional demography of the Delhi High Court in the early 1980s. Given the exceptional quality of his contribution as a judge, it was but natural that he was called upon to discharge certain responsibilities heading committees and matters of public importance. If only someone were to write the structural changes and the accountability principle which came into the public distribution system and which looks very different today, the contribution of Justice Wadhwa Committee will stand out as one of the most significant milestones. With visionary outlook, the learned judge very strongly recommended adoption of digital technology which can bring in transparency. His further suggestion that state-level cooperation and Panchayat Raj institutions should be substantially involved in the system has led to significant institutional changes in the PDS system. It's noteworthy to see that many of the suggestions given by the learned judge have become part of the public distribution system under several state and central schemes. The report of Justice Wadhwa Committee on initial public offering, at the request of SEBI, had assisted SEBI in its endeavor to deal with any abuses and illegality in the IPO scheme. Justice Wadhwa had to his credit yet another contribution, and that was the formation of Insol India, which was the emanation of long-cherished desire of the legal fraternity, chartered accountants, company secretaries, and other corporate associates to have an association to promote exchange of ideas, dissemination of information, and the emerging understanding of the insolvency law across the globe. The deliberations of Insol India and in association with Insol International can certainly be assigned a significant role in the evolution of insolvency law in India. We often talk about the predispositions, the proclivities of honorable judges. Evaluations of the judging process of appellate constitutional courts, if to be realistic, must go beyond this. In contemporary times, the yesteryear's formalism that judge only apply law and do not make it reasonably buried. The principle of deference to other agencies, which Judge Richard Posner calls process jurisprudence, involves modesty in lawmaking. Constitutional restraint to legislative invalidation calls for higher deliberation. All these functions collectively inform the judicial process. Each one of the chapters or domains of judging, if you may consider so, also demands artful delineations of rules of judging. Keeping all this in view, if you scan the judgments and opinions of Justice Wadhwa in the field of tax law and other fields, we can see how ably he perceived these distinctions and applied them. He skillfully put to service his practice of tax law and his exposure to the emerging branches of practice in the Delhi High Court in the 80s. I particularly have in mind his reading of Section 293 of the Income Tax Act and how ingenious legal procedures devised to circumvent this provision need to be guarded against. Next comes his opinion in the case of Kerala Agriculture Income Tax Act in state of Kerala with Shanti Verma Jain, where he thought the claim for exemption on agricultural income by a trust whose dominant purpose was propagation of particular religion was not well founded. These are not mere ephemeral opinions. They add to the collection of principles which will be very often required to be applied. I think we'll be doing great contribution to the restatement of our tax laws if we can reflect and write on some of his affirmation of similar principles and the subtle nuances introduced in the application of law. So also his opinions in application of proportionality principles in service law. The short period of his service in the Supreme Court notwithstanding, the remarkable volume of judgments spent by Justice Wadhwa and their relevance will be remembered as noteworthy. His opinions in the field of criminal law to show the balance between strict views and leniencies. His views on the case of former Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi assassination case in confirming death sentence has stood the field for long. I find many instances when the Honorable Judge found it disconcerting that in criminal matters, where the ethics of punishment is a liberty issue, high courts had not employed relevant care. With justifiable anguish, the Justice Wadhwa underscored the importance of witness protection in criminal trials in Swaran Singh versus State of Punjab. The pages spent on underscoring this importance are a testimony to the judge's sensitivity to fairness in the criminal justice system. Justice Wadhwa's opinion in a case under Medical Termination Pregnancy Act, which involved the attempt of the accused to secure the assistance of an unqualified medical professional, was wholly unconscionable. The well-settled principle under Section 34 of the Indian Penal Code that common intention may develop at spot was relevantly applied as the judge felt about the importance of securing all due processes about women's health. Justice Wadhwa eminently belongs to the class of judges who have contributed to legal literature. His work on the law of consumer protection, along with Mr. N.L. Raja, an eminent senior lawyer in the Madras High Court, is a worthy contribution to the law of consumer protection. On a personal note, I may add here that the learned judge was the president of the National Consumer Dispute Resolution Commission. He used to call me and share about occasion when he would use my volume on thoughts. I remain in personal gratitude for his warm remarks, which always remain encouraging. Between responsible deliberations and chances involved in the listing of matters in the court, the opportunity to deal with matters of moment beyond the run of the mill, even among the appellate and constitutional crowding, land in the laps of judges. These are occasions for innovations and creativity. The pages of Supreme Court reports are sprinkled with a large number of them. One such opportunity was well engaged in by the Honorable Judge when he was a judge of the Delhi High Court, and that was the Naveen Jindal national flag case. The Supreme Court affirmed the view taken by the learned judge, which reflects a deep understanding of the exercise of fundamental rights in promotional national values of culture. He is survived by his wife Srimati Krishna Wadhwa, his daughter Geeta Wadhwa, and the family, son Darpan Wadhwa and his family, and son Ashan Wadhwa and his family. My deepest condolences to the members of the bereaved family.
Honorable the Chief Justice of India, Dr. D.Y. Chandrachud, Honorable Judges of the Supreme Court of India, Attorney General for India, Shri Venkat Ramani, Solicitor General for India, Shri Tushar Mehta, Additional Solicitors General of India, Vice President of the Supreme Court Bar Association, Secretary of the Supreme Court Bar Association, members of the Executive Committee of the Supreme Court Bar Association, President of the Supreme Court Advocates on Record Association, Shri Vipin Nair, Vice President of the Supreme Court Bar Association, Secretary of the Supreme Court Advocates on Record Association, Office Bearers of the Supreme Court Advocates on Record Association, Senior Advocates of the Supreme Court of India present here, colleagues at the bar, advocates on record, members of the Wadhwa family, and friends. We are gathered here today to pay homage to the memory of Justice Devinder Pratap Wadhwa, who was born on May 5, 1935, and passed away on August 8, 2024, at the age of 89. As I began to pen the journey of his life, both as a judge and as a man behind the judge, I marveled at the values that he cherished and practiced, his sense of right and wrong, empathy for those unjustly dealt with, and the courage that he displayed in a world of falling standards of integrity. I got a glimpse of these traits of his personality in my interactions with those who knew him and from the members of his family, apart from the slew of significant judgments that he rendered. From a humble beginning through sheer hard work and commitment, he came to play a significant role as a member of the legal fraternity. He adorned this court after having served as a judge of the Delhi High Court, as well as the Chief Justice of the Patna High Court. Justice Devinder Pratap Wadhwa had to overcome grave adversity in his early childhood. His father passed away when he was only 4. That was way back in 1939. Then came the partition of India. One can imagine the impact of the tragedy of partition on a 12-year-old. It broke millions of homes and destroyed millions of lives. The Wadhwa home was one such home. The unheard tales of grief and woe impact our lives even today. Yet from these tragic events emerge stories of some brave sons and daughters of India who struggled, had the courage to face adversity, and set examples for us to emulate. The journey of some of these brave persons symbolizes the quintessential human spirit to conquer extreme adversity and rise to the pinnacle of power. Justice Devinder Pratap Wadhwa, by the dint of his commitment to hard work and the values that he espoused, rose to become a judge of this court. As we all climb the ladder of life, we need to honor those who hold up the ladder, without whom we will fall by the wayside. That is the support system we all need and must never forget. When the Wadhwa family were displaced during partition, they stayed with their mother's brothers at several places, starting from Kullu. The family had to struggle for a living, but benefited from the unflinching support of Devinder's maternal uncles, who not only helped them financially, but also educated them, helping them to realize their dreams. It is this support that molded young Devinder's character and taught him the values of commitment to not just his own family, but also the extended family of citizens of this country. Justice Devinder Pratap Wadhwa cleared his BSc from Allahabad University and then pursued his LLB at the University of Delhi. In 1958, he became a pleader of the Punjab and Haryana High Court, and in 1960, having become an advocate, he started his practice in Delhi. He joined the chambers of Kundanlal Arora, a seasoned practitioner of criminal law, who soon realized that young Devinder had a spark in him. having the necessary qualities of head and heart to be a successful lawyer. So impressed was he with young Devinder's character that he suggested that Devinder would be an appropriate suitor for his niece, Krishna Wadhwa. After a few years of practicing largely in the trial court, Justice Wadhwa got an opportunity to practice in the Delhi High Court when he was appointed counsel for the Government of India. This enabled him to appear in multiple causes before the High Court, where he excelled. Judges soon realized that he was a lawyer who would be a great asset to the bench. He was offered judgeship at a time when lawyers considered it both an honor and a duty to move from the bar to the bench. He accepted the offer with humility. Thus began his journey as a judge in 1984. In 1985, after a long stint in the Delhi High Court, Justice Wadhwa was appointed as Chief Justice of the Patna High Court. In a short span of 1.5 years, he brought in sweeping reforms in the state's judicial system, endearing himself both to the members of the bar and the bench. He left behind a legacy which is remembered till date. As Chief Justice of Patna High Court, he activated the Department of Vigilance in the High Court to ensure that the administration of justice is done with an iron hand. He inculcated the importance of punctuality in officers both on the judicial and the administrative side of the so-called subordinate judiciary. He activated the Legal Aid Committee, where he involved young members of the bar by forming committees to visit jails across Bihar. This was a step towards jail reforms. As the Chief Justice of Patna High Court, he personally visited every district in Bihar, for he loved to travel by car. During one such visit, he found that a person who had been granted bail by the High Court continued to be in custody as the jail authorities had not received the bail order. He therefore ensured that the moment bail is granted by the High Court, information to this effect was sent by fax to every district to implement bail orders forthwith. This brought about a sea change in the lives of people. 2 centers of free legal aid were opened in Musalapur Ghat and Lady Stephenson Hall, where members of the legal fraternity sat every evening to give free legal advice. A magazine called Aid and Advice was launched under his guidance, with the chief editor being Justice A.K. Ganguly. Acquisition of the historic White House building for the High Court, setting up a railway reservation counter, canteen, bookshop within the Patna High Court were all because of Justice Wadhwa's initiative. While on the bench, he was extremely courteous and always encouraged younger members of the bar. There were many instances when he would ask a junior lawyer to argue the case. It is only when he found that the case was likely to be dismissed that he would call upon the senior to argue. Such was his attitude towards the young members of the bar, and he became exceptionally popular. When he discovered that there was no sitting space for the young members of the bar in the Patna High Court, he created a space for them, reflecting his genuine concern for every section of the legal fraternity. The fact that there is a Wadhwa chamber in the Patna High Court is evidence of the legacy he left behind. Justice Wadhwa was elevated to the Supreme Court in 1997 and served this court till his retirement in the year 2000. His judgments reflected his concern for the supremacy of law and protection of the rights of individuals. He anchored the judgment in Pepsi Foods, which laid down that high courts, in exercise of their inherent powers, must quash criminal complaints and summoning orders in cases where the launch of a criminal prosecution is an abuse of the process of the court. He exhorted magistrates not to be, quote unquote, silent spectators when complaints are filed, and laid down that the order of the magistrate summoning the accused must reflect that he has applied his mind to the facts and the law. This judgment has been the first line of defense for individuals cursorily hauled up before trial courts in mala fide complaints. His concern that processes of the law must be fair and reasonable is evident in his several pronouncements. In Zunjaru Bhikaji Narwarkar, he held that disciplinary proceedings cannot be initiated against an officer on mere suspicion or on information which is vague and indefinite. In G. Sagar Suri, he laid down that an employee cannot be made to undergo mental agony coupled with monetary loss with protracted disciplinary proceedings and an inordinate delay that was a valid ground to quash the same. In Jaspal Singh Sehgal's case, Justice Wadhwa brought in fair and objective standards for awarding maintenance by directing that the family court must ensure that the wife can live in reasonable comfort, considering her status and the mode of life she was used to when she lived with her husband, but that the amount fixed cannot be excessive or extortionate. He was attentive to the plight faced by women and children in our patriarchal environment and upheld the right of the second wife and children born out of such union to receive pensionary benefits on an equal basis along with other beneficiaries. Justice Wadhwa was very meticulous in acknowledging the role of precedent in his pronouncements. This brought about needed clarity to several areas of law, especially taxation and service law. He always held state authorities to a very high standard of fairness and reasonableness. In MI Builders, he upheld the order of the Allahabad High Court, setting aside a contract for the construction of an underground shopping complex in the iconic Amirud-Daulah Jhandewala Park at Lucknow. He admonished the state authorities, holding that bad governance sets an example, allowing for judicial review where the impugned action is against law or in violation of the prescribed procedure or is otherwise unreasonable, irrational, or mala fide. In another judgment, noting the strong language used against the petitioner in a counter affidavit filed by the union, he cautioned them, observing, one can be firm without being impolite. In the UP State Cooperative Land Development Bank, Justice Wadhwa expounded the vastness of the High Court's powers when exercising its jurisdiction under 226 to protect the citizen when wronged, whether the wrong be done by the state or instrumentality of the state, a company or a cooperative society or association or body of individuals, whether incorporated or not, and even an individual. At the same time, he cautioned that High Court should not interfere when an equally efficacious alternative remedy is available, or when there is in place established procedure to remedy a wrong or enforce a right. He always struck a balance between all interests and sincerely endeavored to give full meaning to the phrase complete justice. I had the privilege of appearing before him in several matters. As judge, Justice Wadhwa was a man of few words. His expressions on the bench seldom revealed the way the matter was moving. However, on occasions, a bemused smile gave us a faint flicker of hope or despair, as one could never read his mind. He was a great listener, and having participated in proceedings at all levels of the judicial hierarchy, he could instinctively separate facts from fiction and arrive at a just verdict. His judgments reflect clarity of thought and exude a sense of justice which he embraced all his life. Outside court, Justice Wadhwa brought the same conviction and clarity to each of his endeavors across a range of issues. In 1997, he was instrumental in forming INSOL, a worldwide federation of lawyers specialized in insolvency law. And he was the only Indian member of INSOL International at that time. An archive is in fact named after Justice Wadhwa in recognition of his role in the development of insolvency regime in India. He presided over several important commissions and prescribed critical reforms, including the 2006 Supreme Court appointed Commission on Eliminating Corruption in the PDS system, which spent 8 months consulting all stakeholders from government officials to NGOs to fair price shop licensees and closely scrutinizing the gaps in the PDS system in Delhi. The Commission's recommendations were detailed and far-reaching, setting out stage-wise steps that needed to be taken in the short term and in the long term to ensure that every person in Delhi has enough food on their plate. The Commission was also one of the first bodies to recommend the use of technology to prevent fraud and leakages in the PDS system and advocated for self-help groups from marginalized communities to be trained to run fair price shops so that affected persons could actively participate in the running of the system in which they had the most at stake. Justice Wadhwa also chaired a SEBI-appointed commission on reallocation of shares in the matter of the initial public offering irregularities between 2003 and 2005. The commission identified 13.5 lakh individuals as eligible for restitution. SEBI has since fully recompensed about 11 lakh individuals and in the process of completing payouts to others. The reforms introduced pursuant to the commission were crucial to re-establishing investor confidence in the Indian stock markets. A committed family man, he taught his children to believe in themselves and encouraged them to realize their dreams. He was an avid gardener and a foodie who, according to his daughter, made the most amazing Rogan Josh. His leisure time was spent with his family, and after retirement with friends at the IIC, consuming fried snacks in the evening away from the vigilant eye of Krishna, his wife. And when asked, he would say, and perhaps that's the only time he said, he deviated from the principle, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Magnanimous, he always kept an eye open for the poor and the weak, patient, dignified, with a sour sense of humor and an occasional mischievous smile. This made him the person he was, lovable and endearing. 6 years ago, he suffered a spinal injury, which to his utter dismay limited his movements. Ultimately, it was prostate cancer along with COVID that took him away from us. He's survived by his wife Krishna, his daughter Geeta Wadhwa, who is a GP settled in Manchester, UK, his elder son Darpan Wadhwa, a senior advocate, and his architect technologist son Ashwan Wadhwa. Our condolences, deepest condolences to the members of his family. May his soul rest in eternal peace.
May I request all of you to stand up to observe 2 minutes silence in memory of late Justice D.P. Wadhwa.
May I have your Lordship's permission to conclude the proceedings of the court?
All courts will assemble at 11:30 for normal judicial work.